Well, let me tell you about the second best wedding I've ever been to. The first, of course, was mine, but the second best was in Poland 3 years ago. It was a long summer night with the sun sets about 9:30 p.m. It was my cousin Andrzejek's wedding. We get to this banquet hall, and there's this long table just full of food, and then on top of that, there's a lolly table, and my favourite, there's a meat table. In fact, there was so much meat there that everyone had kind of these little meat bags to take home at the end. But then on top of all that, there was entree, main, and dessert. And then at midnight, we took a break, we played some games, and then another round of entree, main, dessert. 6 courses all up. Between each course, there was dancing, and at 3 a.m. on the dance floor, the age range went from 7 to 77. People kind of kept dancing till 5, woke up the next day, and partied again for day 2. What a crazy wedding that was. Wouldn't you love to go to a wedding like that, especially if someone else was paying for it? Well, tonight we're going to see actually that we've been invited to a better wedding than that. And my question for you is, have you RSVP'd? Well, check out this parable that Phil read for us earlier. Matthew 22, verse 2, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. See, God the King is preparing a feast for his son Jesus. And so verse 3, he sends his servant to those who have been invited to the banquet to tell them to come. He's like, don't miss out on this. But what happens? They refuse to come. Refuse to come. Can you imagine that? Imagine if you were invited to Meghan and Harry's wedding, the most lavish wedding of your life, you refuse to come. But this wasn't just like refusing their wedding, it was like refusing a 1st century Middle Eastern king. I mean, these guys didn't exactly muck around. And so what does the king do? Verse 4, he sent some more servants and said, tell those who have been invited that I prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened calf have been butchered. Everything is ready. So come to the wedding. So the king, he said, like the barbecue, it's ready. You know, the ox and the beef, it's kind of marinating right now in the hickory smoked barbecue sauce. It's going to be so good. Come along. The king pleads with his guests. But what do they say? Verse 5, they paid no attention. And one went off, one to his field, another to his business. They just ignored him and said, nah, I'm just going to go off and pay the bills, do some work. How ridiculous is that? And then check out that more responses. Verse 6, the rest killed his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. Crazy. Some of his servants rejected the king, and others actually beat and shot the messengers. They killed the king's inviters. Crazy. And so how would you expect the king to respond? Well, verse 7, the king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burnt their city. So the king, his patience runs out, and you finally see his justice come through. Except there's a little twist to the story. What do you think might happen now? Well, actually the king, he shows this incredible grace. Verse 8, he sent his servants, the wedding banquet is ready. And go out and invite a whole bunch of people. I've got this fattened calf. I've got this ox. Go out. Go to the street corners. Go invite the good and the bad, the doctors and the drug dealers, the missionaries and the murderers. Go and invite them all. I want them all to be there. Can you imagine a wedding like that? The rich and poor, the good and bad, all gathered together. Wow, what an incredible picture. And the story could end there. And wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that leave a nice, happy taste in our mouth? But there's another twist, like a horror movie. Check out verse 11. The king came in to see the guests. He noticed a man who was not wearing wedding clothes. A guy wasn't dressed appropriately like I am. What happened? What's the deal with that? That isn't so bad. No, remember this is 1st century Middle East, right? You did not disrespect the king like that. In fact, the king probably provided a white garment for everyone to dress in. And so if you weren't wearing the right clothes, it's like you're rejecting the king himself for his son's wedding. And so verse 12, this man, he's got nothing to say. He doesn't even have an excuse. And so the king, he throws him, he judges him outside, throws him, ties him hand and foot, binds him into the darkness where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Incredible, eternal justice for this guy. Wow. So why does Jesus tell us this parable? Well, he tells us that there's 4 ways which we can respond to him. They all start with P. Firstly, we can persecute. Firstly, many people all around the world, they persecute messengers of Jesus. Even here in Queensland, people hate hearing about Jesus. So Christians, are you prepared to stand up for him? Secondly, you just get the, who cares? See, some of us here, we just ignore Jesus. We kind of just put other stuff in our lives, whether that's work, business, family, and ignore him. Thirdly, we're pretenders. See, some of us here, just because we go along to church doesn't make us right. Just because we're kind of rock up to the wedding doesn't mean that we've actually been washed by Jesus. See, the only way you can be right by Jesus is if you're clothed in him. Is if you put your trust in him and he has clothed you in his righteousness. His blood has washed you to make you clean. Are you a pretender tonight? And lastly, the final response is the party. Are you part of the party? See, God, he wants you so desperately to be invited. He's gone, sent messengers to the ends of the earth so that you and I can be part of this eternal party. And the best part about the wedding is not going to be the food. It's not even going to be the people. Area from Mitchelton to Mozambique. It's going to be billions of people celebrating together. No, the best part of the wedding is that the king will be there with his son. And so my question for you tonight is, have you put your trust in Jesus? Have you said yes to the wedding invite? How about I pray?